My name's Liza Heyman. I run the Champions of Change program here in the Office of Public Engagement. Thanks for being here. Applause for you guys. First, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you to our champions for the work that you do, for traveling across the country, for bringing your families, and thanks for all those who are in the audience with us, the advocates, the people who are here in DC and making this work really count and raising your voice around disability employment. In 2011, the president, post-State of the Union, said, we needed a program, we needed something to lift up people at the local level making change, and that's where we started our Champions of Change program. And since 2011, we've raised the bar, and we've managed to just have some incredible people come in and through this building. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here, and I want to just make sure that we lift up the stories of our champions today and just shout them from the rooftops. So one thing I will say is this event is live streamed. You are on camera. Camera is right over there. Second of all, we have a special hashtag for this event. You'll notice it is on the screen. It is hashtag champs4, number 4, PWDS, people with disabilities. So use that hashtag. We ask you to use social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you prefer. And we'll make sure that we can just search through this hashtag and keep track of the amazing tweets and everything that we've been posting on the internet today. So again, thank you. And with that, we'll kick it off to my coworker, Taryn Williams. She is the Associate Director of Office of Public Engagement and a liaison to the disability community. Thank you, Taryn. Welcome to the stage.
Good afternoon. Oh, you guys are a little bit quiet. Good afternoon. Great, thank you. Welcome and good afternoon on behalf of the White House Office of Public Engagement, the Domestic Policy Council, and the various federal leaders that comprise the Curb Cuts Initiative. We are so happy to have you here today for our Champions of Change ceremony for individuals who are enhancing employment opportunities for people with disabilities. We can think of no better way to celebrate NDEAM, and I promise not to talk in an acronym, so I'll call it National Disability Employment Awareness Month, or NDEAM. There's no better way to celebrate than to recognize individuals who all across the country are doing their part to enhance the lives of people with disabilities. It'll be an extraordinary afternoon, made even more so by the company in which we keep. In addition to the leaders present from the administration, we are joined in this room by leaders from the disability, business, and philanthropic communities. Each and every one of you are doing your part to improve employment opportunities for people with disabilities, and we are so glad that you can make it here today. With that, I'd like to introduce a leader from here in the White House. No stranger to the fight for civil rights, Cecilia Munoz is the assistant to the president and director of the Domestic Policy Council. Before serving as assistant to the president, Ms. Munoz served as deputy assistant to the president and director of intergovernmental affairs. Prior to joining the Obama administration, Ms. Munoz served as Senior Vice President for the Office of Research, Advocacy, and Legislation at the National Council of La Raza, or NCLR, La Raza, the nation's largest Latino civil rights organization. Ms. Munoz has been recognized numerous times for her work on immigration and civil rights. Please join me in welcoming Cecilia to the stage.
Thanks so much, Taryn. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the White House. We are really thrilled to have you here. I have learned so much from our gatherings of Champions of Change. And while this is really about lifting up some great work and some great individuals doing that work all around the country, I want you to know how much inspiration we take here at the White House from the opportunity to learn about what you do, the opportunity to celebrate it, and the opportunity to have a conversation about how incredibly important this work is. So thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for giving us the chance to focus in on it and be inspired by it. As you heard, it's National Disability and Employment Awareness Month. And this is a tremendously important thing for this administration to be focused on, and it's something that we've been focused on since the very beginning. I started the day after the inauguration, and we have had advocates from within the administration as well as partners outside of the administration holding our feet to the fire, making sure that this is very clearly in our sights as we do what the President has asked us to do, which is focus on making opportunity available in every community, every constituency, and every corner of the country. As most of you already know, and you already heard about it a little bit from Taryn, the Curb Cuts to the Middle Class initiative is the administration's cross-agency effort to increase equal employment opportunities and financial independence for individuals with disabilities, and with a particular emphasis on individuals with significant disabilities. This is important because we know from data that comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics that workforce participation rate for working-age people with disabilities is about 31.6%, and that compares with 76.5% of working-age individuals without disabilities. We also know that the poverty rate for individuals with disabilities ages 18 to 64 is 28.8%. These are 2012 numbers, compared to 12.5% for individuals without a disability. Those are huge disparities, and that's exactly what we need to address. This makes it clear how much we have to do to make sure that opportunity is available in every community, in every constituency. But it also makes clear, and I had an opportunity to be part of a conversation that the President had with young leaders in the disability rights community, that we're really leaving talent on the table in this country. That's what those numbers really suggest. And that's something that we can't afford to do if we are going to grow our economy and create opportunity in the way that the President has outlined. We cannot afford to leave talent on the table, and these statistics suggest that that's exactly what we're doing in this country. So this is the thing that we are trying to change. You know that in 2010, the President issued an executive order which committed the executive branch to increasing the number of individuals with disabilities in the federal workforce. We've made progress. In fiscal year 2012, new hires who were people with disabilities totaled about 16,653, which is about almost a 15% increase compared to FY 2011. And at no point in the past 32 years have people with disabilities been hired at a higher percentage than they were in that fiscal year. So that's progress. But it is also true that we haven't fully reached our goal, and we have a lot more work to do to make sure that we do it. I know that you know that. Some of the people in this room are the very people who hold our feet to the fire, as you should, and we're holding our own feet to the fire on that as well. So progress, but by no means are we where we need to be, and we know we have more work to do. In his 2014 State of the Union address, the President emphasized the vital priority of equipping Americans with the skills needed to realize economic opportunity, to make sure that our workforce and training system are more job-driven, integrated, and effective. And this means supporting programs across the workforce that more effectively prepare workers, including workers with disabilities, for high-growth, high-demand careers. We're serious about this, and we hope that the relationships that we have with people around the room will be helpful to us in meeting these important goals. On March 24th of this year, the new Section 503 Affirmative Action Regulations became effective. A number of you fought for those for a long time. We're proud to be able to put that forward. For the first time, it establishes a 7% utilization goal for individuals with disabilities. This means that for the first time, we're asking federal contractors both to set a goal, but also to be thinking about the talent that they're leaving on the table and to be developing plans for how they're going to make use of that talent. It's an important step forward, but we know we have a significant road ahead in order to fully implement that and fully help our partners in the corporate sector fully implement that. And I would point out that some of our champions of change work with and represent some major leaders in the business sector who are taking this on and who are leading the way and demonstrating to the business community that not only is this something that is desirable and achievable, but it is good for business and good for the country. So we have leaders like Microsoft, like Hyatt, Walgreens, Procter & Gamble, that have taken this on and are leading the way, and we want to make sure that others follow that example because it's tremendously important, again, not just to the success of individuals with disabilities, but to our success as a country and in making opportunity available. So I thank you so much for being here and for being part of this important effort. I thank and congratulate our champions of change for doing the work that you do and for lighting the way for the rest of us. These are incredibly important goals. They are fundamental to who we are as Americans and to the promise of opportunity and the capacity to contribute to the fullest of our abilities. That's what we're about as a country. We know we have work to do to get fully there, and that's what you're helping us do. So thank you for that, and I hope this is a useful day and a great celebration. Thank you all.
And I know he's standing right outside. We're going to ask Roy Austin to please come to the stage. Roy Austin is with the Domestic Policy Council here at the White House. Welcome, Roy.
Well, good afternoon. Oh, come on, you can do better than that. This is a celebration. Good afternoon. This is a wonderful day. It is my privilege to be here today to honor these extraordinary leaders and shine a light on their work to ensure that individuals with significant disabilities have a fair shot at succeeding in good jobs and careers. Now, I work with a team of people. We're called Urban Affairs, Justice, and Opportunity, and we work on everything from criminal justice to civil rights to housing to labor to human services to a number of our place-based initiatives. And the one thing that intersects with all of these is disability and disability rights. And we are always working to ensure that our policy development is fully inclusive of the needs of individuals with disabilities. As my boss, Cecilia Munoz, just told you, advancing employment opportunities and expectations for people with disabilities strengthens not only our economy, but also our entire society. It creates a more inclusive America where people with disabilities know the enormous role that they play in the growth and success of this nation. Now, this administration is working to address the persistent barriers to employment faced by people with disabilities and to shift the conversation about disability employment from one focused on whether people with disabilities can work to one more aptly focused on what we can do to ensure that people with disabilities have every opportunity. Now, people with targeted disabilities are being hired into the federal government at a higher percentage now than at any time in the past 17 years. This success has led to more people with disabilities in federal service, both in real terms and by percentage, than at any time in the past 32 years. Now, I have a personal shout out to make. There's a person in the auditorium named Eve Hill. And if you do not know Eve Hill and I had a chance to work together in the Civil Rights Division. And Eve's passion and her commitment to these issues is incredible. And as someone who day in and day out, I heard her asking the question, what does this do for people with disabilities and how can we make it better for them? So I know you're gonna have an opportunity to hear from her later, but I just want you to know that part of my passion for this issue comes from having to listen to Eve talk about this day in and day out and realize that if I didn't do something about it, I'd have to hear even more. So when you see Eve, you should thank her for that. Now, today's 10 champions represent a diversity of employment backgrounds and a diversity of types of disability. Every day, these individuals are stepping up in big ways to make sure that Americans with disabilities have equal opportunities and a true pathway to the middle class. So, without further ado, allow me now to introduce our champions. First, David Bartich from Falmouth, Maine. Now, David is the plant finance manager for Procter & Gamble's Tampax facility in Auburn, Maine. David helped develop accessible employment opportunities at the Auburn plant's Flexi Center, where 40% of employees are individuals with disabilities. Since the Flexi Center's inception, there has been an increase in customization, productivity, and workforce morale across the entire plant. What started as an interest has turned into a passion for helping others and spreading the word of sustainable employment opportunities for people with disabilities. Thank you, David. Next, John Ficca from Tampa, Florida. Now, John is the director of hands-on educational services. Prior to this role, John taught special education to public school students of all grade levels. In 1998, with the help of the Hyatt Hotels Corporation and the Florida Department of Education, he founded Hands On to assist learning disabled and physically disabled adults. John even returned to school to learn American Sign Language so that he could better communicate with his students who are deaf. Hands On at Hyatt has graduated over 1,500 adults with disabilities at 32 Hyatt hotels all across the country. Thank you, John. Dan Romis from York, Nebraska. Dan is a self-employed farmer with his own organic egg business. Dan is a disabled military veteran, having last served in Iraq in 2007. In 2013, he started his farm, Prairie Pride Poultry, let me get that right, to support the growing local food movement, providing fresh eggs produced by free-range hens. Dan runs a very successful business which has established a business relationship with the area grocery stores. Now, his real problem is having enough eggs to meet his growing demand. Congratulations, Dan. Jenny Leigh Fleury, Mercer Island, Washington. Jenny is Senior Director at Microsoft, leading the Trusted Experience team, TEXT, which focuses on accessibility, privacy, and online safety. The Trusted Experience team is at the forefront of creating positive experiences that apply technology to make a difference in the world and lives of individuals. Jenny is also the chair of Disability at Microsoft, an employee resource group focused on enabling people to be successful regardless of ability or disability. With the help of her team and broad community within Microsoft, Jenny leads many initiatives to empower people with disabilities, both inside and outside of Microsoft. Congratulations, Jenny. Angela Mackey, Pendergrass, Georgia. Now, Angela is a human resources generalist at the Walgreens Distribution Center in Pendergrass, Georgia. Angela is born with cerebral palsy, and she has dedicated her career to ensuring that individuals with disabilities have employment opportunities like she had. When she served as career outreach coordinator at the Walgreens Distribution Center in Wilmington, South Carolina, she helped develop a program that resulted in individuals with disabilities representing nearly half of the workforce. She has also worked to make her current distribution center accessible to individuals with disabilities. Now, individuals with disabilities constitute roughly 25% of employees. Congratulations, Angela. Alexandra MacArthur, New York, New York. Alexandra is a senior associate consultant with the Taproot Foundation's advisory services team. In that role, she helps corporations develop and implement high-quality pro bono programs to meet pressing community needs. Before joining Taproot Foundation, she was named Miss Wheelchair America and spent a year dedicated to promoting national workplace inclusion. She has also served as co-chair of the Junior Board for Resources for Children with Special Needs. Alexandra is an advocate for, an example of, the importance of finding methods of inclusion and opportunity for people with disabilities, especially in the workplace. Congratulations, Alexandra. Oswald Mondahar, Boston, Massachusetts. Griswold is the Senior Vice President of Mission and Advocacy for Partners Continuing Care. Oz, as he is known, helped develop Working Partners, a first-of-its-kind public-private partnership between Spalding Rehabilitation Network and the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission. Working Partners brings together government and community leaders to design policies that break down barriers to employment for people with disabilities. Previously, Oz led the New England Region recruitment program for the Social Security Administration and worked as a human resources executive in a number of industries, including manufacturing, hospitality, and finance. Congratulations, Oz. John Robinson, Glenmont, New York. John Robinson is managing partner and CEO of Our Ability, a company owned and operated by people with disabilities to support people with disabilities. John has made it his life's work to ensure that individuals with disabilities receive equal employment benefits and opportunities. Over the past 5 years, Our Ability has worked with individuals, nonprofits, and large corporations to facilitate better employment outcomes for those with disabilities. Now, John is helping build a unique web portal that will help individuals with disabilities find employment. Congratulations, John. Jennifer Rojas, Temple, Texas. Jennifer is the inclusion manager for McLean Company. She has been in that role since November 2013 and has spearheaded the company's first diversity program, the Spark Initiative, which focuses on disability inclusion. The goal of the initiative is to increase disability awareness and expand employment opportunities to people with disabilities throughout McLean. Under Jennifer's direction, McLean has increased disability inclusion by facilitating awareness training and developing partnerships with community organizations that support McLean's goal of recruiting people and veterans with disabilities. Congratulations, Jennifer. And Tim Springer, San Francisco, California. Tim is the founder and CEO of SSB BART Group, a company with the vision of creating a world where all digital systems are accessible to people with disabilities. Under his leadership, SSB has provided digital accessibility compliance solutions for corporations, government agencies, and educational institutions. Tim views access to digital technology as a mechanism for empowering individuals with disabilities. He is dedicated to ensuring technology not only meets regulatory standards, but also supports real-world use by individuals with disabilities. Today, nearly half of his company's team of consultants are individuals with disabilities. Congratulations, Tim. And with that, let's give another round of applause to everybody.
judge come towards you.
Thank you, Roy, and please join me in giving our Champions of Change another warm round of applause. We're very much looking forward to hearing their stories later on this afternoon. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce you to another leader in the disability community. Kathy Martinez currently serves as Assistant Secretary of Labor for Disability Employment Policy and leads the department's Office of Disability Employment Policy, also known as ODEP. Martinez also advises the U.S. Secretary of Labor and internal agencies on how departmental regulations and policies impact people with disabilities. Under Ms. Martinez's leadership, ODEP has launched the award-winning Campaign for Disability Employment, a national multi-organization public awareness initiative that educates about the value and talent of people with disabilities as they work in the workplace. A graduate of San Francisco State University, Ms. Martinez speaks and publishes widely on an array of topics related to disability employment, including the emergence of disability as an essential component of workplace diversity and inclusion, and the importance of expectation in ensuring youth with disabilities grow up with an assumption of work, a topic on which Ms. Martinez, who herself was born blind, offers compelling and personal perspective. Welcome to the stage, Kathy Martinez.
Wow. Congratulations, champs. You guys are beautiful in so many ways. I don't mean that as some stupid inspirational speech. I mean it in the most heartfelt sense of the world. And you really recognize that diversity adds value and that different life experiences allow us to think differently about how we achieve goals, solve problems, and manage others. We call this innovation, and it's really the hallmark of what makes this country great. All of us, including those of us with disabilities, have multiple ways of describing ourselves. Those of you who know me know that I certainly do. And while my disability is one part of who I am, it's just that, one part. And that's the inspiration for Who I Am, the new PSA that makes its official debut here today. Produced by the Campaign for Disability Employment, which Taryn mentioned, this PSA is funded by the Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy, and the PSA features 9 people with disabilities sharing their varied and many sides, including talking about the jobs they love. And I would say that Who I Am reminds us that we're all the sum of many and varied parts, some that are visible, some that are not. And I really hope that this PSA empowers everyone to bring their whole self to work. Actually, to bring their whole self everywhere, including to work. We also hope that the PSA inspires employers, large and small, to create workplaces, welcoming workplaces where everyone is valued and where it's okay to own who you are and disclose anything that might be different about yourself. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Who I Am, ODEP's latest public service announcement. Thank you very much. Taryn didn't trust me to step over the side. Yeah, there's a big ledge there.
So we're having a technical difficulty for a moment, so give us about 30 to 45 seconds and we'll pull that up on the screen. Thank you. Pardon me? We recommend that you tweet in the meantime. I know that Dara has us, yes. For those of you who don't know her, she is a robust tweeter. Just give us a few moments while we resolve this. Thank you. Thank you, Renee. While we're waiting, if you need a reminder, that hashtag is champs for people with disabilities. The number 4. So despite multiple copies of the PSA on hand, it appears that we are having some technical difficulties. So unfortunately, we will not be showing it right now. We are going to postpone it to later on in the event. So we're sorry about that, but we will try to have it for you a little bit later this afternoon. Thank you, Kathy, for coming up to introduce the PSA. Now I want to introduce you to our first panel, and I'll start by introducing our moderator. Patricia Hsu currently serves as the Director of the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs at the U.S. Department of Labor. She leads a staff of 650 men and women around the country who are dedicated to protecting workers, promoting diversity, and enforcing the law. Prior to joining the Obama administration, Ms. Hsu served as Vice President for Programs at the Legal Aid Society Employment Law Center in San Francisco. Ms. Hsu joined the Employment Law Center in 1983 as a staff attorney, where she spent 26 years representing workers on cases focused on employment discrimination. Ms. Hsu is a graduate of the University of California, Berkeley, go Bears, and the University of San Francisco School of Law. Also at this time, we would like to bring up the following champions to the stage. Oswald Mondahar. Good applause. Angela Mackey. John Robinson. Alexandra MacArthur. And John Thicka. And while we're waiting for our panelists to get situated, we are going to identify our moderator, who I think just stepped out. Here she is. Hello, Pat. Come on. Oh, no, we're flexible here. Thank you for rolling with it, and welcome to our first panel. Thanks, everyone. Sure.
Okay. I'm Patricia Hsu from the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs. First of all, I wanted to thank the White House for convening this wonderful Champion of Change event. Special thanks to Valerie Jarrett and Cecilia Munoz, and to my boss, Secretary Tom Perez, who you'll hear from later, for their really enduring commitment to issues that affect the disability community. And of course, our gratitude to President Obama for his vision of improving opportunities for all workers, and for backing it up, quite frankly, with his strong commitment in the face of a lot of adversity. So to my panelists, thank you all for your very significant contributions to the employment of individuals with disabilities. Your commitment and innovation and passion has and will continue to open the doors of equal employment opportunity for scores of qualified individuals with disabilities. As you know, the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs at the Department of Labor, where I work, issued a rule requiring federal contractors who do business with the federal government to establish an aspirational goal of 7% for employing qualified individuals with disabilities through thoughtful recruitment. Thank you. Hiring and retention policies and procedures. This panel focuses on recruitment and hiring practices, and your work will enable the OFCCP to continue its practice of facilitating the success of all federal contractors by sharing your tried and true best practices. We want to model success for employers who are struggling to diversify their workforces, and the champions you will meet today are helping to model that success as well. And we honor you for your efforts to create safe, welcoming, inclusive, and accommodating workplaces for people with disabilities. So with that, if I could start with you, John. It sounds like an amazing program with the Hyatt hotels. You've graduated more than 1,500 adults at 32 Hyatt hotels. Can you talk about this program and how you started it and its success?
Yes, Patricia, and thank you for the opportunity to share and collaborate with our folks around the country. I think hands-on education is a good illustration. It's a great illustration of what happens when you have great partners coming together, all focusing on the mission, all focusing on the cause. And my first partner started with my wife when I was 17, getting married at 18 and dropping out of high school. She never gave up on me. She knew that I had something to offer. And after 10 years in the Coast Guard as a cook, she encouraged me to go back to school. If my teachers in my high school in Tampa, Florida knew that I had a degree and I was a teacher, they would have a heart attack. But I want to start by thanking my first partner, and that's my wife, who is here today. When we first started putting the plans of this together, I was a special ed teacher working with transitional youth. And, we have a lot of programs for people who are lower functioning, supported employment and placement services. And we have a lot of community colleges and VOTECs for people with disabilities that can go to college. But for the transitional youth that are not college bound, we didn't have a lot of opportunities. So I got together with the Florida Department of Vocational Rehabilitation and trying to create something that I thought was going to be a summer job. God had a different plan, and with the help of VR and Hyatt in Tampa, we started, and we had a dozen folks go through our program that first summer, and they all got jobs. And I was excited, but vocational rehab was very excited. And because we were working with Hyatt hotels, Hyatt doesn't like to do anything horizontally or down. Hyatt wants to always be the best and create opportunities and great experiences for their external and internal guests, which are their employees. So it was Hyatt managers that were saying, why are we just at one Hyatt? Why are we just in one department? We can train in other departments in other cities. And so we started expanding throughout Florida. And then with the help of CSAVR, yeah, the claps. That's a national organization that represents vocational rehab on the national level. We were able to expand to different cities, and now we're in Florida, DC area, Texas, St. Louis, Denver, Seattle, San Francisco, and we're about to start in New Orleans. And I cannot finish my, would you say I had 3 hours and that's it? Okay. I cannot finish my 3 to 5 minutes without recognizing our two partners, that Kathy West Evans, who flew in from Seattle, Washington for CSAVR, and Doug Patrick, he's the Senior Vice President of Hyatt Hotels Human Resources. Your presence alone demonstrates your commitment to what we're doing. And I'm so happy to look in the back of the room and see our RSA Commissioner, Janet Lebrecht, who is she smells what we're cooking. And she attended an event we had in July, and thank you, Commissioner. And like I said, Patricia, I'm getting too much credit. You know, if there's anything that hands-on needs to illustrate, is that we are nothing without our partners, and we can't do anything by ourselves.
So what kind of jobs do people have?
Our students train in the kitchen to be entry-level cooks. They train in housekeeping, laundry, PBX. We've had people train on the front desk. At the Grand Hyatt Washington, if you see a young man named Austin, he is on the bell stand, helping guests go up to their rooms. We have students, we've had so many students who were deaf that I had to go back to school to learn sign language. All kinds of positions, all kinds of disabilities, physical, intellectual. But one young man, we always knew that our students were going to get promoted, and in 16 years, there's some that are doing very well. But one young man went through our program in 2003. This is a 2-week training program where they're employees of Hyatt and they get paid, and more importantly, they get to use Hyatt as an employment reference. And there's no better thing you can do on an application than putting Grand Hyatt Washington. This young man graduated our program. He does not have a high school diploma, and now 11 years later, he's an executive chef, and his salary and benefits exceed 6 figures.
So this,
That's gainful employment.
so just in closing, this sort of thing does not happen without some real leadership from corporation. Tell me about that. Who was it at Hyatt? Because it takes somebody inside to kind of make this happen.
Well, the top person with Hyatt is sitting in the room right now. He's Doug Patrick. When I asked him if he'd join me as my guest, he said, "I'll be there, I don't care." And he actually is doing a flyby today, flying in this morning, flying back to Chicago. Doug heads up a team of great folks, and one of the departments he oversees is diversity and inclusion. And a gentleman who's no longer with Hyatt was my first contact, and when he handed me his business card and it said Hyatt Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion, I was like, wow, man, these people get it. And they have made it very clear that they want to include people with disability in all of their diversity initiatives. Because a lot of people think of diversity as race and age and gender, but Hyatt, they take their philosophies and their culture from the top down very seriously. And in fact, Hyatt, 90,000 associates, it's more like a family than a company. And their philosophy is take care of your internal and external guest and make sure that we're always seen as an employer of choice. And I can't thank you enough, Doug, and I'm sure that you're going to share that with everybody in Chicago and around the country, and around the world.
So, Angela, diversity is one thing, but inclusion is something completely different. And at Walgreens, Walgreens has made tremendous strides. Talk about some of the things that have been happening at Walgreens under your direction.
Well, about 7 years ago now, I got the opportunity of a lifetime. We had a new distribution center that we're building in Anderson, South Carolina. Where the goal, before the building even got built, was to include people with disabilities. Personally, this was awesome for me because I had previously come through vocational rehabilitation as a counselor, where even with a master's degree, I had to, I used to tell my clients when they tell me they couldn't find a job, to tell me that when they sent out 250 resumes, went on 65 job interviews, because that was my life before vocational rehabilitation and Walgreens. It was so awesome coming into the Walgreens family to know that disability or not, we all have value. That as a woman with cerebral palsy, outside of our walls, people had a hard time getting past the CP, to see me. So to be able to shape this program and to say, not only do we want, mild disabilities, but we want people with every type of disability to show off what they can do, to add value, it was just very humbling for me. And basically what we did was, in this one distribution center started a domino effect. After the first year, we had a goal of 30% of our employees having a disability, which we equated to 250 individuals. By the end of the first year, we were at 48% of our workforce having a disability. After we felt that success, we were given permission to roll that out to our other 22 distribution centers, where each of the distribution centers had a goal of 10% of their workforce having a disability. Then from that, we invited the stores to embark on our success, and now all of our stores hire folks with disabilities. And then, to top it off, I was given permission to roll out a training program that we call Inclusion Boot Camp, where we had approximately 200 companies that come through our doors, where our team members were able to train companies what their capabilities are. Oftentimes we look at somebody with a physical or cognitive disability and we immediately determine in 2 minutes what he or she can do without digging deep to see what lies underneath. And I think that's why I'm so proud of Walgreens, because they dig deep. Not just for me, but all of my team members every day that are proving they're more than just their disability.
So, Angela, it's clear that you've been instrumental in this whole initiative at Walgreens. How many distribution centers are involved, and what do you attribute Walgreens' commitment to this?
All of our distribution centers hire people with disabilities.
Wow.
In all of our stores. And right now, we have over 8,000 stores. And I think, we have proven when you have no fear, amazing things can happen. And hopefully it helps our team members with disabilities, but it helps who we think are team members who don't have disabilities. We have changed the mindset of our workforce and those that see us from the outside.
What is it that causes some of the HR people or others who are hiring officials to kind of look beyond what they may see and probe further about people's real abilities and value?
Well, I've often said in my trainings, I could say all day long that I'm just as capable as somebody without a sexy walk. That's how I joke about my cerebral palsy. I could say that all day long, but until I have an opportunity to prove it, I'm still just a woman with cerebral palsy. We have to get past what we think capability is. We have to see, I mean, without any of us having the opportunity to prove ourselves, we would be like the billions of people around the world sitting at home with a disability, not having the opportunity to work. The only difference is somebody gave us the benefit of the doubt, so to speak, and let us prove ourselves. What would have happened without the benefit of the doubt?
Right.
For me, I think I look at what we've been able to accomplish as a company, and I ask myself, why was I given the benefit of the doubt? It would have been so easy for me to have not had the opportunity to have bestowed on me. And then I look at my team members, and I'm just, they have done it. And I wish I could have all of them from women because coming into a distribution environment, that's not the easiest environment to work in, and they prove themselves every single day. And I'm so proud.
Alexandra, you've gone a different route a little bit. You've worked on a number of different boards and had also a great impact on increasing equal employment opportunities for people with disabilities. Do you want to share some of your insights?
Sure. I think first and foremost, it has stemmed for me the importance of employment and of my job and the way it has given me fulfillment. And so I've sought opportunities to help others have similar opportunities. And so I was honored in 2011 to be Miss Wheelchair America. And in that position, I traveled around the country speaking with primarily big businesses about their efforts to employ people with disabilities. And part of what I learned in that is, part of what Angela's saying is that it takes risk, and it is the risk takers and the early adopters who are charging forward like Hyatt, making this an imperative. And I think what needs to happen now is how do we share those stories, and how do we, connect them, companies, with peers to help share the best practices and to help show what the benefits are, how they're reaping those benefits of employing talented people with disabilities. And so I applaud efforts like the United States Business Leadership Network to bring together companies around this issue and say, this is fantastic, these are the different ways we can do this, and here's how it's benefiting, quite honestly, our bottom line. Through my time as Miss Wheelchair America, it connected me with the National Disability Institute that's based here in Washington, D.C., and I'm now honored to be a board member for them, as you mentioned. And they've helped me to see that employment is part of the equation for people with disabilities, but it's not the only equation. And I would be remiss if I wasn't up here talking about financial capacity for people with disabilities and the ABLE Act, quite frankly. We need to pass the ABLE Act because if you are a person with a disability who wants to work but needs benefits in order to be an independent member of our society, then we have to raise the cap of $2,000 in limits to your name that you can keep your benefits and also still work. And so I'm honored to be a part of NDI's effort to pass the ABLE Act and also to increase financial capacity for people with disabilities as a whole. And then finally, as I do my work, I think about, what's the role that I can have in this effort, and my network is a really important part of that. So as a young professional in New York City, I have friends who work in the top companies in New York, and through my interactions with them, they start to understand the challenges and opportunities of being someone who has a disability. And so I am co-chair of a junior board with resources with children with special needs in New York City, and as part of that effort, I look to young professionals, I recruit young professionals, and we sit and talk about employment. And these are people who are going to be the next leaders in the business world in 15, 10 years, I don't know. And so it's exciting to think about these next generation of managers, of people who can hire people with disabilities, and they understand the HR practices, they understand the benefits, and they understand that it's both a risk and a huge payoff to see this as something they want to work on. So it's been a really exciting thing to see young people committing to this issue and to really wanting to be part of it.
So how do these young people view their own personal growth and future? What are the barriers that they've identified or the fears that they have that we might be able to share with others in the audience who are in a position to hire the next generation?
Yeah, sure. I think the individuals on the junior board, a lot of them they don't have disabilities, and they have not had an understanding of disability as a movement or as an issue. And so it's really exciting to help them, enlighten them in that way, that it is a huge issue. You heard, the stats today, and it needs to improve, and it must improve. And so I think when they think about being, managers, part of what I hear a lot is, okay, how do I speak to my own manager about this issue? How do I come to them and say, are we working on hiring people with disabilities? What does our pipeline look like? Where can we go to find those people? And so it's about equipping them with resources and to be able to share those stories so that once they are in the position to be hiring or to be influencers within their own company, they can know the facts and know the places to find the right talented people.
If I could just underscore one of your comments, creating the pipeline is, I think, one of the most important things any employer can do, because unless you strategically recruit people with disabilities who are qualified for a whole variety of jobs, you're never going to be able to hire people with disabilities. So we've heard a lot about public and private partnerships, and I wanted to move to you, Oz, if I might, because you have a different kind of partnership with Working Partners, the first of its kind public-private partnership between Spalding Rehabilitation Network and the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission. Can you tell us a little bit about your work there?
I'm thrilled to share a little bit about that, and thank you all for orchestrating this incredible event. It's certainly an honor to be before you all. There are so many champions in the audience today that I see the sea of faces that I recognize. So this is really a very simple initiative that came out of trust between government and the business world. And in Massachusetts, after 25 years of being in the community, you build some trust and relationships. So I went to MRC, which is our Mass Rehab Commission. I also went to Mass Commission for the Blind under Janet's oversight. And bottom line said, I spoke about the voc rehab services and how we wanted them to come inside and be embedded in the business, so they understood the practice of the business. In our case, we're one of the largest employers in the state, and healthcare and biotech is growing and by leaps and bounds, and we need to be represented in these organizations in all the jobs. And it still is a challenge. I think it's a challenge for both the voc rehab specialist not understanding the jobs and for the business person to understand that you don't hire for the disability, you hire for ability skill, and you manage the individual, you don't manage the disability. So this was really a simple way to say, let's take down our guard, let's have a conversation of what it takes to do the job, and it doesn't really matter how you do the job, but that you do the job. And so what we did over the last 5 years, almost 5 years, we have contacts from vocational rehab specialists in our hospitals. And they are part of our management team. They're part of our management structure. There are successes and there are failures and there are challenges, and we learn from all of those. And that is, when we don't make the right match, can we have a conversation that it's not about regulation, it's about the human contact and demystifying the disability hiring process and really the retention. And to me, it's amongst the 60,000 folks we work with at Partners Healthcare System, in my particular world, it's Spalding and home care. And there are folks that have abilities and disabilities at all levels there that we somehow accommodate without even knowing. So how do you get to the core of what the person can bring to the table, and being aware of the fact that we want to be respectful of disclosure and so on, but to get beyond all that, that we educate the applicant, that we educate the vocational rehab specialists to have their skills come to the table. We can't do it alone. We're a relatively small organization, so we're able to tap government in ways that I don't think a lot of folks tap government. I want to work with government. I think that there are many, many talented folks in the VR services, under Kathy West Evans throughout the nation that do an incredible job. But sometimes government and the private sector don't walk down the same pathway. And if we can get to know each other, I'm speaking to the choir here, but I would ask that every single business here go out to their state and touch base with your vocational rehab specialists. Go to your commissioners, bring them into your business. Really find out what their services are that you can offer, that they can offer you as an employer. And I can tell you without any doubt that you will place really good people throughout the industry, not in particular jobs, but throughout, as we have, and learn about where we fall short and learn about where we're successful. And then for those in business, highlight those champions that are managers, that it's not much of a risk, but people perceive there's a risk in hiring someone with a disability. Employment is a real tough thing for people with disabilities. We don't get a shot at this. And when we get a shot, we will make sure that we succeed, because those doors are still pretty much ajar. They're not open. So once you get through that and you prove yourself, I can tell you that the experience that the manager will have, the business will have, is really rich. And bottom line, outside of my visible difference, I come to the table as a business person. I come to the table knowing that it's very difficult to get the right talent to the door. So I'm very proud of my colleagues that are here in the audience, because, sure, I get labeled the guy he's coming down the hallway now, he wants to hire somebody. But nonetheless, the bottom line is that my cadre folks, my boss being here, my colleagues here, that they really do champion this. So it's about trust. It's about saying, we're going to look at ability, skill, and then when there's an accommodation, to reach out to the VR services, to really look at what it takes for that person to be successful. And that's anyone that comes through your doors, that you check in with that hire 2 months out, 3 months out. It doesn't matter if they have a disability or not. That's just being a good employer. What do you need to be successful in your job? And you don't know that right off the bat. So I call my MRC contacts and say, he's doing well, but I'm not sure, and how can we talk about this? How can we have a discussion? Because we don't want it to be derailed. So that does not come easy. That comes about really having that relationship that brings government to the table, as we have here today, and we thank you for your championing at the OFCCP. We have an aging workforce, so beyond the fact that we're hiring individuals with disabilities now, if we're lucky enough to stay alive for a while, if you don't have a disability now, you know this, you will acquire one. It's a real lucky thing. And once you get that, you want to be employed for as long as possible. So this has really paved the way for the future. And I was speaking to my friend Alexander, my new friend, that the future is bright, but boy, there's a lot of work to be done. And having a frank conversation is really important to me in my role as a leader in advocacy, but really as a business person. We need to be able to have the frank discussion.
So I have two questions for you. One is, have you thought about replicating this throughout the country?
That's why I'm glad I'm here. For a while there, I forgot to breathe. I was going to choke. So,
yeah, please breathe. Breathing is important.
So it's a really low cost. There is no cost to this except goodwill and smart people. So to bring this across the country in any industry. So I think of the hospitals that I work in as a hotel. There's a hotel in every hospital. There's an accounting office. There's a food service. So there is a variety of employment, but you can bring this to retail, you can bring this to finance, you can bring it to hospitality. And it's really having that vocational rehab specialist that spends time in your industry, that gets to know the good and the bad and the ugly of working with you in your industry. It's very simple. I'd love to share it. If I had a wish in my mind for today, beyond the fact meeting all of you and being here, was the fact that this can be replicated. And I hope that wherever it's being monitored and shared, that someone calls and said, tell me about this. I think government is tight with funding as well, and businesses don't have enough HR people to go around. So you have to find those resources somewhere. And, the lucky thing for me is that now I step aside, my colleague Colleen here, step aside, and the managers are leading the way. It's not about Oz and Colleen or the folks from Mass Rehab saying, hire this person. They're actually coming to say, we have a project here, we have an initiative, can we do an on-the-job training? That's a great day when folks see the ability versus a disability. And that takes, once again, a dialogue. So I think it can be, to answer your question, I think it's very easy to replicate, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I will give it to you free of charge.
Before let's hold off on the second question and move to John. You're the managing partner and CEO of Our Ability, a company that's owned and operated by people with disabilities. How has your organization facilitated better employment outcomes for individuals working with nonprofits and large corporations?
There's a macro and a micro answer to that.
Okay.
The macro answer is that the best way we can facilitate employment outcomes is to talk about it.
Yeah.
And, all of the examples up at this table and later are perfect examples to talk about the ability within all of us. One of the things that happened to me early in this part of my life was I would get people that would ask me to come speak to their organizations. And I had no clue why did you want me to come speak? And it was because they wanted to understand how I overcame the obstacles that I had in my life. In those conversations, you would meet other people with differences. And you would share stories of, we've all had to overcome certain obstacles, but maybe the biggest hurdle of all was employment. And when you say that amongst people with disabilities, there are nods of heads. And so I realized early on that there's a place to help have this macro conversation where we can highlight the Angela Mackeys of the world who are successful, beyond successful, and we need to talk about Angela. And do that in a place at Our Ability, we do that online. We're proud to do that work, and we need to do that work. Out of that are the further conversations that we have with nonprofits, for-profits, large companies, saying we have to do two things. We have to increase the dialogue internally inside our organizations, talking more and more about the ability within all of us, open those doors to self-disclosure for those employees that we already have inside our organizations, and by increasing the conversation we can bring more of those existing employees to the table. And we also have to be open to recruiting the John Robinsons and the Angela Mackeys and all of us into our organization. So we do that macro. We try to very hard to have a great organization to talk externally. We're building a web platform where people with disabilities can upload their profile. The businesses that we already work with are able to tap into that database, and we're awfully proud of that. At a micro level, we have to be able to have an honest conversation one-on-one with individuals. I say in every conversation that I have, whether it's a motivational speech or whether it's a one-on-one conversation with an existing person with a disability, I say it's my responsibility. I am my best advocate. So if I wanted a job, I can't dwell on the fact it took 4 years to find that first job 20 years ago. But when I get that opportunity to make sure that it is successful. So it's my responsibility how the world sees me, how I advocate for myself. And there are fantastic examples of champions here who are the best advocates of all. So I had a phone conversation with a young man on the drive down yesterday who is applying for a credit union position with one of the credit unions that we work with. And I said, it is our responsibility how successful we are. Don't forget that. Don't assume this job is there for you just because they're interviewing you. Yes, I will do everything I can to advocate for you on the back end, and Our Ability will too, but it's our personal responsibility. So the answer, how Our Ability helps, we want to elevate the macro conversation with the companies that we work with, and we want to have an honest conversation with people with disabilities on a micro level to say, here are the steps that we can take to move forward.
So let me ask you this question. As somebody who manages people, you hire people for a job, but to really capture their spirit and their sense of innovation and creativity, you have to give them some leeway. You have to take some risks and let them think about things on their own. So how do you suggest getting that kind of conversation out there? So it's more than just hiring people with disabilities, but letting them kind of thrive and grow and bring their creativity to the workplace.
The honest conversation begins with the employer. You say you're going to be bringing in great skills, great individuals. But with every individual, we are all different. So provide the space inside your organization where you can have that open and honest conversation so that those skills thrive. I can tell you that the times that I've been employed where I thrived was when those employers ask me honest questions. And I was willing to say, listen, I just need a step stool for the photocopy machine or for the washroom. And I will run with this opportunity. And you have that same conversation with business today. I had this conversation with one of our largest companies that we work with, and I said, the more honest you can be in the conversations that you have with your individuals existing today, you will have more people self-identify, and you will have individuals that will thrive with the opportunity that they're given. It may not look exactly the same in every instance. Right. Angela's job looks different than my job, than Alexandra's job, but you know what? If we're all given the freedom to accomplish what we can accomplish, you know, that business will thrive.
So we only have a few more minutes before we take a few questions from the audience. Is there just some brief message you'd like to leave with this audience about what your work is and what the future of this all is?
I think, Patricia, we're all here talking about employers accepting and accommodating. We're talking about people with disabilities having hope. I think the biggest message that I would like to share is one about not only partnership, but when I do training about partnerships, I say, get to know them so well that you feel like you work there. And I'm at some Hyatt hotels around the country, and they go, did you ever work for Hyatt before? And I'm pretty Hyattized, am I not, Doug? And when I'm talking to vocational rehab professionals that work for the state agencies in the District of Columbia, sometimes they say, you know, did you work for VR? I mean, how do you know about 26s and all these other outcomes and responsibilities? So partner with them, get to know what they need so that you feel like you work there. And then my second part of my message is there's another side of education. I think that as a special educator, it's not just about employers and employees. It's about taking a paradigm shift in the way we look at vocational education, vocational training, because not every industry requires a degree. Some of the best chefs can't speak English and they can't pass a state norm test, but are you going to say they can't cook and can't be successful? And so I think we need to also talk about the educational side and taking that shift. And you see that happening with some of the community colleges that are having certificate programs, and you're seeing OJT has existed forever. And what we're doing is just a formalized OJT, on-job training. But the thing is, we need to have other opportunities, other options for people that can't succeed using the traditional routes.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. So 2 quick ones. One is for every business that's here to reach out to another business that is a trusted partner, whether it's someone you sell to or you buy from. I think that would be one thing that I would suggest, and go to the top because that's where it trickles down. So make that call, be an ambassador. For those of us that have not touched the VR services and VR services haven't touched us in business, please do reach out and do a laundry list of things that you can share and what you'd want to learn about that business in order to place really good people in good jobs. And then, you know, soon enough, hopefully you get beyond the visible difference and you get into really the discussion of what abilities I bring to the table. We want to be seen as whole, not necessarily as disabled. And that's not just a statement about the reality we face, but it really is that once we get past that, it gets very exciting, because then the questions that, to John's point, that are very open about how do you do this, that becomes rich. We have families with disabilities, we work in a community with disabilities, and we're going to have more disabilities. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, Angela?
Opportunity is the hard part. Once we're given that opportunity, you know, we are going to help meet the bottom line. You know, that's historically what we haven't been given.
Okay. Ron?
I think the one thing I'd like to point out and leave people with is that if Section 503 of the Rehabilitation Act had been written 25 years ago, it would not have taken me as long to find employment. And we're all blessed to be living under this right now. And so if you're an individual and you're listening to me, figure out how you can use Section 503 to your advantage. Be your best self-advocate. Reach out to VR, reach out to other organizations on college campuses, whomever. Find out how you can be your best advocate. And if you're a business, find out how compliance can help you tap into a wonderful and engaging workforce for today and tomorrow.
Thank you. Alexandra?
Yeah, I would echo John's message of action. Let's not just talk about it anymore, let's do something. And so what I want to see is that everyone recognizes that people with disabilities are more educated and more workforce ready than ever before. And so let's make our benefits policies mirror the post-ADA world that we live in today.
Thank you. Do we have time for a question? Does anyone have a question for our speakers? Yes, sir?
Good afternoon. My name is Carlos Moy. I work for the Hispanic Business Foundation. I'm the youth coordinator for the foundation. I'm glad that I was mentioned the topic of education. When I started working for the Hispanic Business Foundation, I was astonished to learn about students who go to high school. They only obtain a certificate of completion. And most of the students, they have a curriculum that goes parallel to the traditional curriculum that we all go through. So I just wanted to know if you are involved in some advocacy to change the culture of, not having just in the certificate or certification, but to still have a diploma, but in a different way, just modify the way that they are educated, so they can still have a formal education.
We have some educators here.
I just, being from Florida and having a large Hispanic population, and I work closely with hospitality, obviously with Hyatt, I would say there's nothing more culturally diverse than a hotel. You go to any hotel and there's 17 to 20 languages being spoken in the back of the house. And it's one of the few industries that somebody can come from another country and they start making beds and they can't speak English. 20 years later, they're bilingual and they're running the department with no other further education, just maybe some internal training. It happens all the time. And so I would say that the folks that are capable of getting some type of post-secondary education, great. And there's VR agencies and that can help them with that. But if language is that barrier, then seek out an industry where it doesn't matter. People who are deaf, you would think that, well, some people say, well, how is he going to communicate with, I had one chef ask me, how am I going to communicate with him? I said, how do you communicate with Jose over there that doesn't speak English? And he says, well, I kind of show him, and then I go like that. And I say, well, that's how you do it with this guy. Except if you want to text him or email him and say, can you come in early tomorrow? You can text him. Unless you can text in Spanish, you can't. So you can, it's educating folks out there on not just the disability or the barrier. And what you're talking about is language when you're talking about limited English. But it's just finding the right avenue.
Any other questions?
Hi, Pat. Andy Imperato with the Association of University Centers on Disabilities.
Hi,
My
Andy.
question for anybody that wants to answer it is, why do you think 24 years after the ADA, the majority of people with significant disabilities are not working and not actively looking for a job?
I think that we don't teach individuals how to self-advocate enough. I mean, for me, put on my VR hat to be an advocate for someone in power. But always more powerful as that person can tell you what they can do themselves. I think that's something that we need to work on.
Andy, absolutely. We don't have enough of us. And anybody out there, if you know us, point out us to 2 or 3 other people. Because I had no role model. I needed to know John Kemp. We look a lot alike. I didn't know him, right? I would have gone to Georgetown instead of Syracuse. Syracuse didn't hear that, hopefully. We need to tout and shout about advocates that are successful so that the college students today and tomorrow that have disabilities can understand there is a pathway to success. And then we up here need to knock on as many doors as possible to businesses and organizations and say, hey, look at us.
And I think we need to look at what you're talking about, the ABLE Act,
Yeah.
because we have a benefit, a system that doesn't motivate folks sometimes. And so opening up, and you're more of an expert in that area, Alexandra, but we have people where if they work, they're penalized.
Yeah, and they lose the benefits that allow them to work. And so we need to have saving systems that allow people to not only work, but also get paid at an equal rate and in the same amount of hours that anyone else can work, so that they can save for the future. That's what working entails, and that's what, will help people enter the middle class, save for retirement, the list goes on.
So why don't you join me in doing what John just suggested, and let's tout and shout our champions for change.